I want to welcome everybody here. This is our election year convention, and we are going to be doing a great many things here, but primarily getting ready for the 2012 election for President Obama, Senator Feinstein, and very importantly to find ourselves and our volunteers and our efforts in all of the congressional districts that Leader Pelosi feels Democrats have a chance of winning in her never-ending drive to get control of the People's House, the House of Representatives, back into the hands of the people and away from the special interest groups. And I'm sure that were Nancy not here and it was me alone, to be Marinucci and Belva, and I don't know who else. So anyway, I give you the star of our party, Leader Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the invitation to present to the convention this weekend. I want to also commend you for the magnificent performance of the California Democratic Party in the 2010 election. Capturing every statewide seat, adding to the state legislative numbers, and not losing any seats in a congressional year that was not a good one in other parts of the country. Your leadership has really invigorated the party, and that's very visible in the members of the committee that I have seen since I arrived here. Congratulations to you for being such a great chairman, Mr. Burton. It's nice to be in San Diego. It's so beautiful and it's so wonderful. And I was telling some friends earlier that when I was chair of the party 30 years ago, it was that was after John was chair of the party the first time. My first executive committee meeting was here in San Diego, and so I always think of it. It was, it's my first meeting. I was elected at the convention, but that was not my meeting, and this was. So it's for many reasons, it's a wonderful place to visit. Our family has come here many times on our own, but we've had many important Democratic meetings in San Diego as well. So here we are, and John mentioned California's Battleground. What's the theme of the convention is Battleground, California. And for us, in our effort to win the House for the American people, it indeed is a battleground. We have many opportunities here because we were able to out-recruit the Republicans to run candidates who are real problem solvers. We have at least three places where the primary is decided. Starting down south, Mark Takano, who is a teacher, going up toward Central California, Jose Hernandez, an astronaut, actually the first Hispanic astronaut, Ami Berra up north, who is a public health doctor. We are very, very proud of them. We believe that they will be joining the ranks of the Democratic majority come November, and again, we expect to do even more than that, but at least in those three cases, to amass the drive for 25 to take back the House. A year ago, people would not have thought the House was in play. Indeed, they admit that it is, and we have out-recruited in the country. We have out-recruited, outraised the Republicans, and although they sang from the highest hill that they were going to win 20 seats in redistricting, we've out-redistricted them as well, just by supporting objective redistricting throughout the country. So it's great to be at the California Democratic Convention. It was my children here. I was chair 31 years ago. My daughter Christine is chair of the Women's Caucus, and she's been a volunteer in the California Democratic Party for decades. So it's personal, it's political, it's urgent now for us to have a very successful convention. These people are so energized, they care about the issues, they care about people, and they know the politics in order to win. So in Battleground, California, once again, California will lead the way. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership. Are you willing to take any questions?
Yeah, but before that, I just wanted to make a point that we ended last year on a very high note with the elections that Nancy talked about. And we started this year on a very high note, electing the first Democratic mayor in the city of Modesto since God knows when. So even in those Republican areas, we're showing that the people care and the people have figured out who is on their side and who's still on the side of the 1%. So I forgot to mention that. But now, any questions for the leader? I'm sure we've talked.
You put out a statement this morning on praising the president on the compromise on the birth control issue. But what do you say to the critics out there who say that this leaves, that the president has left women vulnerable, and essentially throwing them out in the cold to make this, for political expediency, to make this issue go away?
Well, I would say that they should read the president's pronouncement. I think he's gotten tremendous. Well, I was on a plane coming from Washington when the pronouncement was made, but my understanding is that he's gotten very positive comments from many of the people who had hoped that he would stick with the original statement, and that this is consistent with that. The president said that the waiver that was given to religious groups for their churches would stand, and I support that. He said it would not be extended to other institutions, even though they were run by religious organizations, and that is still the case. So, and he also said that they would work it, it would be a year to work it all out. Well, it's worked out, and what he's put forth now removes all doubt. I commended the president for his ongoing leadership, his commitment to women's health. I thank him for his leadership in a very unifying way to resolve this issue. But it has nothing to do with what you just described. I don't know who is saying that, but I do know that my women members are pro-choice caucus. And this it's not about anything other than women's health. It's about women's health. And we've worked very hard over the years to make sure, and in our health care bill, to say that being a woman is no longer a pre-existing medical condition. That maybe some people don't understand how central to women's health the issue of the size and timing of families is to them. So I think the president is really to be commended for what he did, and I was a very staunch supporter of his first statement.
Pelosi, you mentioned the three districts in which there's no primary, and
Right.
red to blue candidates. In the other districts where you're hopeful and there are primaries, the DCCC has said agnostic in the primaries. Might that change after Sunday when you have endorsed candidates in each of those districts?
Well, it depends on it. You always, shall we say, reevaluate the path that you're on politically, depending on how serious the competition is within a primary. But yeah, I mean, we always will take a look at that. But right now, we have, throughout the country, we have a pattern where we try to stay a little bit back off from where there is a primary. We want the best possible candidate. The people will choose who that is, and then we will.
If I could follow up, does the top two primary perhaps complicate that a little bit in California, where you might have multiple Democrats splitting votes?
Well, if it's top two and there are two Democrats, we would definitely not be in that race.
I'm thinking of a district where you have one Republican and four Democrats and an independent. Where
Oh, I see. You're saying in advance of the election. Well, again, we take a look as we go forward. We always reserve the right to reevaluate what the particular tactic might be from one race to the other. And just because somebody is in the race doesn't mean that makes it that they're competitive in the race. If their being in the race can take just enough away to hurt our eventually winning what would be the second phase, do we still call it the general election, then we would evaluate that. But simply put, we will make our decisions in favor of one thing, the support for the 1 in 5 children in America who lives in poverty, the assault on women's reproductive freedom, the assault on workers' rights throughout the country. That's what it isn't even about politics, really. It's about how important that particular race is to the lives of America's working families. And that's the most important judgment that we will make.
Can you speak a little bit more about the rematch between Dr. Vera and Representative Lundgren?
John
what's your
probably
recommendation?
can speak to that one with great authority.
Why do you think that Dr. Vera will be able to win this year as opposed to last cycle? The
This
registration's
year,
about the
the last election for Democrats nationally was as close to a disaster. That was a disaster. We lost the House and we lost U.S. senators. This year, with the president leading the ticket, this year with people understanding, and polls show that the Republicans really are fighting for the privileged and for the top 1% or even 2% of the population, Wall Street, the banks, the brokerage companies, and they do understand where the Democrats are, and the Democrats are trying to include programs to help average people, working people, etc. So it's just going to be a whole different chemistry in this election. In fact, there are some pollsters, and I hope to God they're right, that say this could be an absolute flip of 2010. That the people voted Republican and they saw what they got and they're suffering from, they call buyer's remorse.
I didn't say that an additional number of Democrats in that district.
Well, yeah, besides the wonderful independent reapportionment commission that Democrats for years have embraced, has made this just, that's what I love. The Republicans fought to get a reapportionment commission. After they got it, they went to court to challenge it. But the numbers are much better and it's more favorable to a Democratic candidate.
Well, just in general, to associate myself with John's key point, in the last election, there was 9.5% unemployment, a barrier to communication that is impenetrable. That's all it was about, unemployment. We had great campaigns, we had great candidates, and really a week before the election, many of them were double-digit leads. You have 9.5% unemployment, though, and you have undisclosed, secret, substantial special interest money being poured into those races right at the end. Within the last 5 days, it's very difficult to answer $1 million of ads, hundreds of thousands of dollars of ads in some places where the cost for media is lower. So you had 9.5% unemployment, you had the outside secret substantial money being poured in, and we had the outcome that we did. This year, we have the president, as John said, we have the president at the top of the ticket, which will increase the turnout of our base. In that particular district, to get to your point, it is at least 10,000 more Democrats in the district. We lost in a really terrible year, as John described. He lost by a hair. Arnold Barry lost by a hair to an incumbent who was one of the priorities of the Republican leadership in the House. He almost beat him in the worst possible year. So this time, with the experience that he has, let me say about Rivera, he has a personality and an agenda that really invigorates the grassroots. They're one of the most positive, enthusiastic grassroots operations in the country. He will have that again, even more so. More Democrats in the district, president at the top of the ticket, and now battle-tested.
Your high hopes for California, we still have 12% unemployment in LA, so we're still talking about some unemployment problems in the state. So how do you get around that?
Well, it is, as John mentioned, we have to demonstrate to people that we're on a path. If I would say one comment that I would make about the future, the past election, was that there was the president has a magnificent personality. He's a great leader. He's not a finger pointer. And I think that there had been more clarity about how we got there. But you know what? That was then. This is now. I think you see the statistics now. The USA Today saying the light switch, the different thing in terms of unemployment. It will probably go down to just a little over 8%. That's still far too high. But it isn't, we were in a deep ditch. The president's trying to get us out of it. Without the work of the Democratic Congress and the President of the United States, we would have been at 15% unemployment in the last election. Tell that to somebody who doesn't have a job when you're trying to get their vote. They just simply don't care.
But that's nationwide. I'm talking about California.
You understand that?
Talking about LA County.
We're talking about LA County, and we're talking about showing a path. Now, at some point, we also have to point out that certain members of Congress voted to obstruct every job initiative that the president has put forth. Right now, we're having a struggle on the payroll tax cut because there's, as you may have seen in the news today, some admission on the part of many on the Republican side, they really don't want a payroll tax cut. But the president, that is his priority. 160 million people will get a payroll tax cut. That's not only good for them, it has macroeconomic impact in terms of ejecting demand into the economy and creating jobs. They are resisting unemployment insurance benefits extension. That too has an impact on the economy. Better than almost anything you can name. To give people unemployment insurance, they will spend that money immediately, inject demand into the economy, and create jobs. So your question is the perfect one. What do you say to a person who is out of work on why they should vote one way or another? And we're saying this is the path to economic recovery. And in case you want to know, this other person on the ballot, he's voted time after time after time to obstruct any jobs initiatives, including right now, here today, what we're trying to do by the end of the month is, and that's a priority for the president. Unemployment insurance, 160 million people, unemployment benefits, those who've lost their jobs through no fault of their own, ability of seniors to see their doctors under Medicare. It's very important.
Yeah.
You've hit the number at 35, an optimistic number of pickups in the House.
Well, it's a drive for 25.
I know. But
I myself would more, but the drive is for 25. That's the victory.
So what's your number? What are you thinking optimistic?
Well, I'll take 25.
How about in California?
Well, I just told you 3, and
In addition,
just so as we watch the political map throughout the country, it's important to note this: California, Illinois, New York, they're 3 states will do very well, and the president won't be in those states because he will do very well. They won't be battleground because
Except to raise money.
oh yeah. Yes. And I'll add another one, Texas. He won't be there because it's not likely that would be a priority state in terms of the battleground. But we will do very well there. Except he'll raise money there too. So you have 4 states where the president will not be, 4 big states, delegate-rich states, the president will not be, but where we can win half the seats we need to take out of the House. So we're on our own in those places, and we are very comfortable in that way because we think the president should go in the battleground states as in. And then you go to Florida, a state that he will be in, that has a Senate race, and that has much opportunity for us as well. So we're within range just naming those 5 states. We're just a handful, a half dozen more to go. So we feel very good about the numbers. And as far as California is concerned, this is a state that is magnificent. I mean, it's not only the source of great ideas and entrepreneurship and the rest, it knows how to organize. And this chairman understands this state and its grassroots activities down to the last blade of grass. The last blade of grass. So he will have messages that are targeted to those districts that address the economic concerns of America's working families and that talk about fairness. We Democrats were about reigniting the American dream, building ladders of opportunity for people who want to work hard, play by the rules, take responsibility, achieve their success. In our view of the world, we build those ladders, the Republicans take those ladders and walk away with them. We have work to do, and we have work to do in terms of developing the consensus in our country for the path we want to go down. we have work to do to win the election. And I think one other point, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that I want to make. I have said in the last few days, if we're ever going to have fairness and opportunity in our society and in our economy, we have to have fairness in our electoral system. Those of us who've been involved in politics for a long time have to have, as part of our legacy, a new politics free of special interest money dominating the electoral system. And so we have yesterday reintroduced what we call our Disclose Act. Disclose who are the sources of this special interest money and how much did they give, and we want it in real time on the screen when the ad is there. The Supreme Court decision did damage, I think, to our democracy, and so we want to amend the Constitution to turn that around. But we want to disclose immediately. We want to win, and so that we can reform the system, get rid of those super PACs, get rid of all of that, and at the same time amend the Constitution so that it's clear to the public that these people can't come along, deluge the system with their money, suppress the vote in more than 20 states, silence the vote of the people, deluge the system with their misrepresentations, and own the country for their special interests. And you know what? Sounds like a lot of money to all of us. This price of doing business for them. A special interest. They give $20 million, $30 million to something. They get billions of dollars in tax breaks. That's just not the way it's supposed to be.
Do you think it's acceptable then if the president's planning on using a super PAC?
Absolutely. And I salute the president for saying I'm not going into battle. As my chairman, Mr. Steve Israel said, I'm not a fan of going to playing baseball without a bat. This is, they have put this out there. They acted the way they did. And by the way, in the last election, undisclosed, the president is committed to full disclosure, as are the rest of us for any outside activities that happen. But the president had absolutely no choice. We might as well just all go home, forget the convention, not do anything, just call the Koch brothers and say, who do you want to be president? Who do you want to be in charge of the Congress? Who do you want to be in the state legislatures? Because the endless money and the misrepresentations that go with it and the failed agenda that they have, the agenda that has gotten us into this economic fix in the first place.
Well, if I could, if you take a look at what these super PACs have done, first to Newt in Iowa, then to Romney in Carolina, then it's going to be now, I think, Romney's going to go after Santorum. I mean, if they're saying these things, which according to Newt are all, everybody that got attacked, they're all lies, imagine what they are going to say about President Obama. Of course, not born in America, Muslim, socialist, out to destroy the country. No, that's what they say. There's no but. That's what some of them say. And it is just, if you see what the effect has been in Republican primaries, multiply that by 40, and already I think the president's response was to Karl Rove going for $300 million, at least from the two brothers. And I mean, he wasn't going to be talking about good government. He's going to be talking about, quote, whatever he wanted to talk about, which is his right. But as Nancy said, it's a cheap investment, man. I'll spend $100 million to get $1 billion worth of tax breaks, sort of pencils.
But now, to continue what the chairman said, the fact is, we don't want this situation. No. That's why we must win. That's why disclose so the public knows who they are. In California, the initiatives we've had on the ballot, when it had the authority line on it, that was one of the most damaging parts of their initiatives against the energy initiative that they put on the ballot in the last election, and then another one that was the public power initiative before. Just tell me who's paying for this, and I'll tell you whether I'm going to vote for it. So California is enlightened in having disclosure on state initiatives. We're saying on the federal level that has to be there too. But that doesn't mean that we like this system. The president has to do that, or else he might as well just say, Republicans take a special interest to own the country. But having said that, We have to amass the resources, intellectual, financial, political, in every way, to win the election, to rid the system of these PACs and all this big special interest money that is coming in secretly.
Last question.
How important are the congressional races here in San Diego to your efforts to win back the House?
Well, as you may know, that there's a very important race here in San Diego, but it is a primary. So that's why I didn't go to that place. But we see real opportunity here. We have two excellent candidates running for one of the seats, and we're eager to see how it turns out. Let's see what happens here at the convention.
Madam Leader, how much will you raise for the races that are competitive, congressional races competitive in California? How much will you raise for that?
A lot of money.
Can you give us an idea?
Well, it depends on what we need, because, in other words, where you have to win in the country. I don't want to go for 35 and get 24 because I overreached, right? So 25 is the number, and so we will, our candidates here will not be underfunded, but if they don't need the money, we have other places. But a large amount of the money that is raised in California, and we can say this where others cannot, a large amount of the money that will be raised in California will be spent in California.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you all.
First of all, but before you go, I just want to say this will be Belva Davis's, after a few years, last Democratic convention. Belva.
No one here is.
They don't even know who they are. These young kids, what do they know?
We're going to run you for delegate, Belva. You're going to come back as a delegate.
Carla knows.
No, I too want to join John in recognizing the extraordinary contribution Belva has made to the debate in our state. When she speaks, people listen, they respect what she has to say, and we're all very, very proud of her. Belva, congratulations.